Welcome to this deep dive, and we're going to be talking about better habits today.
Sound good.
We're going to be using James Clear's Atomic Habits as our guide, and you've provided some really excellent resources for this episode, excerpts from the book itself,
Right.
a summary from Clear's website, and even a clip from one of his talks.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Looking forward to it.
yeah, me too. I'm already fascinated just in preparing and looking over all this stuff
Yeah.
by this idea that tiny 1% improvements every day
Mm-hmm.
can snowball into these huge changes.
Yeah.
In fact, Clear says that getting 1% better every day for a year
Uh-huh.
makes you 37 times better by the end.
That's wild.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That math alone makes me want to like grab my running shoes or something.
Yeah, it's a powerful concept, isn't it?
It is.
And it speaks to something even deeper than just forming good habits.
Right.
It's about the power of consistency
Okay.
and how even like seemingly insignificant actions can compound over time
Yeah.
to create remarkable results.
Okay, so we're talking small changes, big impact.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about is how does this actually work?
Right?
What is the underlying mechanism
Yeah.
that makes this 1% rule tick?
Well, think about it like this. Imagine a plane taking off.
Okay.
Clear uses this analogy in the book,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really stuck with me ever since.
Okay.
If that plane shifts its trajectory just a tiny bit,
Okay.
a mere 1 degree at takeoff,
Mm-hmm.
where do you think it ends up?
I'm guessing not at its intended destination?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That tiny shift at the beginning leads to a massive difference in the final destination.
Wow.
And it's the same with our habits.
Right.
Each small action, each 1% improvement
Right.
is like a course correction that sets us on a slightly different path.
Okay.
And over time,
Yeah.
those tiny adjustments
Yeah.
lead us to a completely different place than we would have ended up otherwise.
So even if I don't see like dramatic changes right away,
Yeah.
those small efforts are actually moving the needle behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
That's pretty encouraging, actually. It
Yeah.
makes those days when I feel like I'm, barely making a dent
Right.
feel a bit less daunting.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of focusing on the process
Okay.
rather than obsessing over the end goal.
Speaking of process,
Yeah.
one of the key ideas in Atomic Habits that really jumped out at me
Mm-hmm.
was this concept of systems over goals.
Oh, yeah. Love that one.
Can you break that down for us a bit further?
Of course, it's a distinction that often gets overlooked, but it's really at the heart of lasting change.
Okay.
Goals are about the results you want to achieve.
Mhm.
They're the destination you're aiming for.
Right.
But systems are the processes that get you there.
Okay.
They're the daily actions, the routines, the habits that ultimately determine where you end up.
So it's not enough to simply set a goal.
Right.
I need to create a system that makes achieving that goal almost inevitable.
Precisely. It's like having a road map versus simply knowing the address of where you want to go.
Right.
Clear has this great quote in the book. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
Oh, I like that one.
That a powerful reminder
Yeah.
that it's the consistent effort we put in day after day that ultimately determines our success.
This is making me think about all those times I've set, big ambitious goals only to fizzle out after a few weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe if I had focused on building the right systems
Right.
instead of just fixating on the outcome, things would have turned out differently.
It's so easy to do that, though.
It is.
To get so focused on that end goal
Yeah.
that we neglect the process.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is it's not about that one big push. It's about the steady, consistent effort over time.
Absolutely.
Which actually brings up another interesting point from Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
This idea of identity-based habits.
Oh, yes.
This one really resonated with me. Can we dive into that a bit?
Absolutely. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
It's the idea that our current behaviors are a reflection of our current identity,
Okay.
who we believe we are at our core.
So if I constantly hit snooze on my alarm clock, does that mean deep down, I believe I'm not a morning person?
It very well could.
Okay.
But the good news is we're not stuck with the identity we have today.
Okay.
We can change our beliefs about ourselves
Yeah, right.
and in turn change our behaviors.
Okay. Now I'm really intrigued. So how do we actually go about shifting our identity?
Clear suggests a two-step process.
Okay.
First, decide the type of person you want to be,
Right.
not just what you want to achieve,
Right.
but who you want to become.
Okay.
And then prove it to yourself with small wins.
So instead of saying, I want to lose 10 pounds,
Yeah.
I'd say, I want to be the kind of person who prioritizes their health and makes time for exercise.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you'd start taking small actions that align with that identity.
Gotcha.
Maybe you start by going for a 15-minute walk every day.
Right.
Or swapping out sugary drinks for water.
Oh.
Each time you do that, you're casting a vote for your new identity
I love that.
as a health-conscious person.
Yeah.
Right.
I love this idea of casting a vote with each action.
Yeah.
It makes it feel less overwhelming.
Right.
Like I'm not trying to change everything at once, just making small choices that align with the person I want to become.
Exactly.
But how do we make these changes stick long term? That's where I imagine Clear's 4 laws of behavior change come in, right?
You got it.
Okay.
The 4 laws are a framework for building good habits and breaking bad ones.
Okay.
In essence, it's about making good habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying,
Got it.
and doing the opposite for habits we're trying to break.
Okay. That makes sense. It's like stacking the deck in favor of the behaviors we want to adopt.
Exactly.
I'm excited to dig into those 4 laws in more detail.
We'll definitely explore those in our next segment.
Awesome.
We'll break down each law and look at specific strategies for applying them to your own life.
I can't wait.
But for now, I want you to consider this. If our habits shape our identity and our identity shapes our habits,
Mm-hmm.
what does that say about our potential for change?
That's a really interesting question. It makes me think that maybe we have more control over who we become than we realize.
Yeah,
And if that's true, then maybe anything is possible.
the possibilities are endless.
But I guess we'll have to wait for part 2 to really unpack that.
See you then.
All right, welcome back. Last time we were talking about those small 1% changes
Yeah.
and how they can really add up.
Right.
I have to admit, I've been thinking about that plane analogy ever since.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing how such a tiny shift
Mhm.
can make such a huge difference in where you end up.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? And it really highlights the principle of compounding,
Right.
which is central to Clear's argument.
Okay.
Small changes consistently applied over time
Yeah.
can create truly remarkable results.
Yeah.
It's like that old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day.
No.
It's the brick-by-brick progress that ultimately creates something extraordinary.
But isn't it easy to get discouraged
Oh, yeah.
when you're only focused on those tiny gains?
Totally.
I mean, if I'm only improving by 1% each day, wouldn't it take forever to see any real progress?
That's where a lot of people stumble.
Yeah.
They get impatient and give up before they've given the process enough time to work its magic.
Right.
But that's why understanding the power of compounding is so crucial.
Okay.
Think of it like investing money.
Okay.
A small amount invested consistently over a long period can grow exponentially
Right.
thanks to the power of compound interest.
Yeah.
The same principle applies to our habits.
Gotcha.
Those small improvements accumulate and build on each other,
Mm.
creating momentum over time.
So patience is key. I'm starting to see why Cleara emphasizes systems over goals.
Yeah.
It's about trusting the process and believing that those tiny gains will eventually lead to significant results.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not about chasing quick fixes or overnight transformations.
Yeah.
It's about creating a sustainable system that supports your growth and evolution.
Mm-hmm.
It's about showing up day after day and making those small incremental improvements.
Okay, so we need to trust the process, play the long game.
Yeah.
But what happens when we hit a plateau?
Mm-hmm.
Inevitably, there are going to be times when we feel stuck, like we're not making any progress.
Right.
How do we deal with those moments of doubt and keep ourselves motivated?
That's where the concept of identity-based habits becomes even more crucial.
Okay.
Because when you hit a roadblock, it's easy to fall back into old patterns of thinking and behavior.
Right.
But if you have a strong sense of who you want to be,
Yeah.
if you've clearly defined that desired identity,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes much easier to navigate those challenges.
So instead of throwing in the towel when I miss a workout or slip up on my diet, I can remind myself, okay, this doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means I'm still learning and growing.
Exactly. It's about embracing the journey,
Mm-hmm.
setbacks, and all. And remember, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. So even on those days when you don't feel like you're making progress, those small choices,
Mm-hmm.
those seemingly insignificant actions are still shaping your identity.
That's a really empowering way to think about it.
Yeah.
But okay, let's say I've defined my desired identity.
Right.
I'm committed to building a system that supports my goals.
Mm-mm.
How do I actually choose the right habits?
No.
There are so many things I could focus on. It's almost overwhelming.
That's where Clear's 4 laws of behavior change can be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
Let's take a deeper look at just one of these laws today. one that ties in beautifully with everything we've been talking about.
Great. Which one are we focusing on?
Let's talk about the second law, making it attractive.
Okay.
Remember, our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain.
Right.
So if we want to make a habit stick, we need to find a way to make it enjoyable.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we make something like, say, exercising or eating healthy more appealing? It's not always the most fun activity in the moment.
That's where the creativity comes in. One strategy Clear recommends is called temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling, what's that?
It's the idea of pairing an action you want to do
Okay.
with an action you need to do.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say you love listening to podcasts,
Okay.
but you struggle to find time to exercise.
Yes.
You could bundle those two activities by only allowing yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while you're working out.
So I'm essentially giving myself permission to indulge in something I enjoy,
Yeah,
but only while I'm doing something that's good for me. I like it.
exactly. It's about making the desired behavior more attractive.
Yeah.
By associating it with something pleasurable, you're essentially hijacking your brain's reward system.
So it's not about forcing myself to do something I hate. It's about finding creative ways to make the process itself more enjoyable. That's a game changer.
Yeah,
I'm already starting to think about how I can apply this to my own life.
and that's really the key. Finding what works for you. Experiment with different strategies. Explore different approaches and see what helps you make those positive changes stick.
Right.
Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to habit formation.
It's about finding what resonates with your own unique personality and motivations.
Exactly.
This has been incredibly insightful, but I'm curious, what about those times when we slip up? Even with the best systems and strategies in place, we're bound to make mistakes, to fall back into old habits from time to time. How do we handle those moments of imperfection?
That's a great question, and it leads us perfectly into our next segment. We'll be diving into the art of self-compassion, the importance of embracing failure as part of the process, and some practical strategies for getting back on track when we inevitably stumble.
I'm ready for part 3. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into atomic habits. We've talked about the power of small changes, the importance of systems, even how our habits shape our very identity. But let's be honest, nobody's perfect. What happens when we hit those inevitable bumps in the road?
Yeah, those days when
Those days when our motivation wanes or we slip up and fall back into old patterns.
that's where the real work begins, because it's not about achieving some mythical state of perfection.
Right.
It's about developing resilience, learning from our mistakes, and finding a way to keep moving forward even when we stumble.
So it's not about never falling down. It's about getting back up each time we do.
Exactly. And one of the most valuable tools we can cultivate in this process is self-compassion.
Okay.
Because when we mess up, it's easy to beat ourselves up, to get caught in a spiral of negative self-talk.
Yeah.
But that kind of thinking is rarely productive. In fact, it often makes things worse.
So instead of like berating myself for missing a workout or eating a whole bag of chips, I should be a bit kinder to myself.
Precisely. It's about acknowledging that we're all human, that we're all going to make mistakes.
Right.
And instead of dwelling on those slip-ups, we can choose to view them as opportunities for learning and growth.
This reminds me of something Clear talks about in the book, the
Yeah.
idea of reframing failure as feedback.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, it's a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of seeing setbacks as signs of weakness or inadequacy, we can choose to view them as valuable data points.
Okay.
They're signals that something in our system isn't working as effectively as it could be.
So let's say I'm trying to build a habit of writing every day,
Yeah.
but I keep finding myself getting distracted and procrastinating
Right.
instead of just giving up.
Yeah.
I could use that experience as an opportunity to identify the obstacles that are getting in my way.
Exactly. Maybe you need to create a more dedicated writing space.
Okay.
Or set clearer boundaries around your time. The point is, those failures are actually valuable insights that can help you refine your approach.
This is making me realize that maybe the key to long-term success isn't about avoiding mistakes altogether.
Yeah.
It's about developing the capacity to learn from them and adapt accordingly.
That's a brilliant insight, and it leads us to another crucial concept that Clear emphasizes,
Okay.
the importance of finding the Goldilocks rule of habit formation.
Goldilocks rule. Okay, you've piqued my curiosity. Tell me more.
Think back to the story of Goldilocks and the three bears. She tries the porridge that's too hot, the porridge that's too cold, and finally the porridge that's just right. It's the same with our habits.
Okay.
We need to find the sweet spot between challenge and skill.
So if the habit I'm trying to build is too easy, I'll get bored. But if it's too difficult, I'll get discouraged and give up.
Precisely. The key is to find that optimal level of challenge, one that stretches you just enough to keep you engaged, but not so much that you feel overwhelmed. It's in that sweet spot where we experience what psychologists call flow.
Flow, I've heard of that. It's that state of being completely absorbed in what you're doing where time seems to fly by.
Exactly. And it's in those moments of flow that we're most likely to make progress and experience a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment.
This makes so much sense. I'm starting to see how all these concepts, identity systems, the four laws, even failure and flow, all fit together to create a powerful framework for habit change. But as we wrap up our deep dive, I have one final question for this. You knowing everything we know now about the power of atomic habits, what's the one piece of advice you'd leave our listener with?
That's a great question. If I had to choose just one thing, it would be this: start small.
Okay.
Choose one tiny habit, something so ridiculously easy that you can't possibly fail, and commit to doing it every single day, no matter what.
So instead of trying to overhaul my entire life overnight,
Yeah.
I should focus on building one small habit, like making my bed each morning or drinking a glass of water before each meal.
Exactly, because it's those tiny victories, those small but consistent actions that create momentum, build confidence, and pave the way for bigger and more meaningful changes. Remember, even seemingly insignificant actions repeated day after day can compound over time to create truly extraordinary results.
That's such a powerful and encouraging message. It's a reminder that we all have the power to shape our lives, one small habit at a time. Thank you so much for this incredible deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new set of tools and insights for building the habits that will help me become the best version of myself.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, the journey of self-improvement is ongoing. There will be ups and downs, setbacks, and breakthroughs, but as long as you keep learning, keep growing, and keep taking those small but consistent actions, you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
That's a great note to end on. Until next time, keep those habits atomic.
And keep diving deep.